Hey guys, it's Monica. I am on a roll here with my Halloween projects. I am making a crystal bloody necklace. You can wear it as a choker. The idea of it is that you have a slit throat. I know. Gruesome. Yuck. Scary. But this is the sparkly version of it. Yeah. We're just making some little dangles with rondelles in various shapes and shades of red. I'm using some faceted rondelles. The bottom bead is an opaque version of a faceted rondelle. The top beads are 6mm. And then this bottom bead here is an 8mm, and these are rondelles, so they're kind of like a donut. They're not really a round bead. They're flattened on the top and the bottom. I really like these because they look like crystals, and they're nice and sparkly. So we're just making various sizes using these beads here, and we're going to be feeding these into a piece of stretch cord, and I'm using 0.5mm. You can go up probably, I'd say 0.7mm would be as thick of the stretch cord that I would do, and we can actually double this 0.5mm up. So you're going to need some head pins. I've got some 2-inch head pins, and then I also have a 1-inch head pin for my smaller dangles like this one here. I am still trying to do a wrapped loop just because I think that that's more secure versus the simple loop where you just trim off your wire, but I like to wrap it around to the base of the bead. You're going to grab a hold of the top of your bead. I'm using this 1-inch head pin for this one since I've only got 2 little beads. These are really hard though to make the wrapped loop, so you just wrap it as much as you can until you run out of your wire. So I'm pushing this over the top of my round nose pliers to create that 90-degree bend, which is right there. Then I'm repositioning my pliers. I'm right there in that nook of the bend, and then I'm just pulling it with my finger over the top of my pliers to get that question mark shape. Then I put the bottom of my plier back in that question mark. I'm turning this over to my left hand, even though I'm right-handed, but this gives me the ability now to pull that tail around the bottom, and I'm going to need some help because this is such a short head pin. So I'm going to use my bent nose pliers to kind of help me out. And now right here is where, and probably I should do this because it's such a small space, but this is my loop. I could make a simple loop just by taking my flush cutters and cutting off right here at the bend, but I like to wrap this around, so I've just got a very little bit of wire left. I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it around as best as I can. It's not going to be a complete wrapped loop in the way that something like this is. See how that goes all the way down? But however far it'll go is good enough for me. I just don't like to have that separation, and I'm just using my nose pliers because that wire is so hard on my finger to kind of guide it around the base of that wire stem. This is not a pretty loop here on this one. So I've got it kind of wrapped down towards the bead. Just straighten it up a little bit and come over here, and I'm going to cut this off because it doesn't want to twist anymore. So now I have this little bead. Here's another one that I did that looks a little bit better. If this is going to be a choker for you, you've got to measure your neck. A choker can be anywhere between 12 to 16 inches depending on the roundness of your neck and size of beads that you're using. Usually it's around 14 inches for most people. That's a standard choker size. I decided to do mine as a 16-inch because that for me would be a choker. I mean, it would be right on my neck. So in order to have 16 inches, since I'm doubling over my cord, I measured out 32 inches total stretch cord. If they're really chunky beads, then your cord will need to be longer, even though you want it to be a choker. I doubled my stretch cord over this Stretch Magic cord, and it's the 0.5mm right here. In order to get these through all these little beads, I used my big eye needle, and it is actually open from bottom to top. Now this is really misshapen because it's been well loved, but you can see how it kind of has an opening there, but it opens all the way down. So I just fed all of my little beads on and my charms. And I need one more, it looks like, just to end it. It's not going to have even spacing because this is a bloody neck after all. So you kind of want it to be a little weird as far as the shape. So I'm just going to continue to kind of pull these down now until I'm about middle of my cord. I'll be sure that I'm keeping my strings even here. See if I've got about the same amount of cord on either side. All of my beads on my bloody neck are together now. You can do it one of two ways. You can use this loop here on this one side to tie into with your loose cords, or you can simply take some scissors and cut that apart and then tie these together. However you do it though, I would suggest that you definitely put a dot of glue on there. For me, I decided I don't want to have to try to stretch this around my head because I have a rather large head. So I am going to go ahead and do something I don't usually like to do with stretch cord. You can actually crimp. You want to be sure that the one that you choose does not have any kind of sharp edges, because sometimes your crimps can have those. What's tricky is trying to see this clear stuff going through the holes. I don't need to pull as much excess through like I would if I were actually making a strung bracelet or necklace. So then you got to try to get both of these ends through this one crimp tube. And I mean, this cord is very thin, so it's doable. Otherwise you might need to bump yourself up to a size 3 crimp tube, I guess, but I didn't need to because the cord is so small. I'm still pulling this up just like I would a bracelet, so I'm giving a little bit of freedom of movement. And then I want to come here and crimp. So this acts differently than the wire because this is metal and it's crimping this plastic stretch cord. Over time, and even fairly quickly if you're rough on your jewelry, this crimp tube will eat through this plastic because it's going to act as sort of like a sawing motion right here at the crimp. So, you know, this is not something that this necklace is not going to last you 1,000 years. I'm just going to crimp this as normally. I'm in my back channel. I gave it a squeeze and it makes like a little U shape. And I turn my ply right side up and I'm in my front channel now, giving it a squeeze, and it just compresses all that together, kind of, I call it closing my sandwich. And then mine is straight here, but if you felt like you needed to give it just one more little squeeze there, you could with your flat nose pliers, and then just kind of feel it here with your fingers to be sure that that's not moving around anywhere. If this were a totally normal beaded project, I would have beads covering my tails, but since I don't, I'm going to go ahead and cut these off. Just don't cut your other cord. Another reason why, if I'm doing a regular beaded project, if I were to not cover those with beads, then eventually these little tails right here would work themselves out of my crimp, especially if it was something that I wore every day. So I did that on this other side here too. Now because this is an exposed crimp here with a little bit of that stretch cord coming out, you could choose to put some crimp covers over that and it would just kind of enclose that and look like a little round silver bead. This is going to be on the back of your neck, so especially since our necks are kind of sensitive, you might want to think about doing that. So I'm just laying my crimped little tube down here in this gap, and I'm kind of balancing that on my fingernail. And then I get my bent nose pliers and just come on either side to give that a squeeze. Okay, so all that's done is just hiding the little crimp. Then I'm going to do that on this side as well. And I always like to put my crimped tube with the sandwich side facing up, just because the back side is rounded and that slides more easily into the rounded back side of this little Pac-Man shape, which is the crimp cover. So it makes it easier to fit snugly in there. Then just give that a little squeeze. Okay, so then it just looks like a little round bead. Everything now is contained in my little crimp covered crimps. I have my bloody necklace. See how fancy that is? That's fancy. So if you have a dressy event that you need to have a bloody neck for, Here is your project. This isn't real crystals here. I think I mentioned that earlier. This is just my glass beads that are in the shape of a rondelle. This is just something to have like a pretty and really quick Halloween decoration. Have a spooktacular Halloween, y'all!